Bill Lockwood is here, your friend and my friend, and the friend of the world, the light of
Me all right?
I do. I can loud and clear.
Good, good. Yes, good to be with
You
you.
have a nice background back there. Real
Oh
nice.
yeah, that's part of my library. Yeah.
Nice. So, Bill, you're now instead of the last Tuesday of the month, you're going to be with us the first Tuesday of the month.
Uh, well, whatever you like to do, that's fine. You know what? I started another teaching job at Wichita Christian School in Wichita Falls. So I'm trying to get my feet on the floor and get everything my schedule organized a little bit differently. But I
Yeah.
have one class, so we can still do the last Tuesday of the month. That'd be great. It's just however y'all want to do it. That'd be
Okay.
great.
Yeah. We'll work it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
You're not doing juvenile detention teaching anymore, right?
No, sir. I retired out of the Wichita Falls ISD.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I am actually teaching in a private school, Wichita Christian School, and it's a ninth grade Bible class. And so I'm doing one class a day, 1 hour a day,
Right
having a
on.
great time, great students, great staff, and it's just really a world of difference, night and day from the public school system.
Well, I wish you well with that. You
Thank you
look
for that.
well, so you're feeling well now. You
I do.
look
I
well.
feel great. I feel good. I do
Yeah.
feel well. I had troubles last year, but I'm doing all right now. How are you doing?
Amazing.
That's good. Okay.
So,
I like
Bill,
your horse and rider there.
I know, huh?
Yeah, look at that.
This is Country and Western Tuesday.
I like that. That's good. I like that. That's a little G.I. Joe.
It reminded me of when I was a kid growing up in Alabama. I was young, and I used to help my father with the farmland and stuff.
Right.
And he gave me two horses, as a matter of fact. And I used to ride them to see my girlfriend on Sunday evenings after church and
Okay.
all kind of stuff. It reminds me of that.
That's good.
Bill, before we get into our subject here, how do you see what's happening in the country right now and the world, but especially in the country?
Well, I'm extremely concerned. I'm afraid that we've lost any kind of moral base in our nation, and that unless we turn back to God, I don't think this country is going to exist as a separate, independent, and strong nation any longer. And what's happening at the top is happening at the bottom, as you know, the topic we're going to talk about here in a few moments, the Burning Man Festival.
Yeah.
But the same thing at the top, same thing at the bottom, and it's just immorality, ungodliness, wickedness, and it's gone to high places, and that's where we are in our country right now. So unless we can turn back to a moral compass and have a moral compass, I think we're doomed as a nation.
Is this something new, or has this always been happening in the world?
Well, it's always happened in the world. We're not any different in America than what's happened all throughout history. So if we take, for example, the Old Testament nation of Israel and what happened to Israel, this was exactly how they went. They would go for good for a while, and then they'd go downhill, then they would be restored and come back. But eventually God said enough is enough. And he shut the door on Old Testament Israel, and they went to captivity, and they never came back. They came back only under the auspices of the Persian government. Then the Roman government took over, and it was never the same.
And that is what's happening in America right now?
Yes, sir.
Amazing. And so it seemed like, because so many people, most people don't want God. They don't want to change.
Right.
They love the hell that they live in. And
Right.
if you even suggest to them that they can overcome it, that they can
Yeah.
overcome the hell by returning to the Father, right?
Right.
They're not going to do it. It just ain't going to happen. In families, friendship, relationships, and all kind of ships, right?
Right.
What should the individual do in order to survive in a world where most people are not going to change?
Well, every individual for himself needs to be obedient to God and live a life that is in sacrifice to him, and reestablish those basic principles with himself, herself, and their families, and live godly. And something important, though, that and I've been saying this for many, many years in the pulpit, that we have to figure out what is our relationship to the government, because the government is cracking down on Christian people now,
Yeah.
and is antagonistic and ugly against Christians and Christianity. And it's going to be that way, just as in the country of Canada, just as in the country over in England. And they're cracking down on Christians, they're cracking down on preachers, and so many Christians have become so weak that they don't want the truth spoken, lest it be offensive to someone, unless the government kind of cracks them on the head with it. But we have to be able to figure out how to manage ourselves and speak boldly in these times, because that's the only thing that's going to be is personal salvation. And I don't know that we're going to be able to save the country, but
Right.
at any rate,
Yeah. Why such an attack upon Christianity and no other religion but Christianity? Why is the attack so major upon Christians?
You know, because as Paul lined out in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 11 and following, he points out there that the war has always been about God versus Satan. And Satan has operated through different individuals, different politicians, different emissaries, different agents in the world, and it's always been about satanic powers versus God. That's what it's been about. So it doesn't make any difference if we're talking about Islam, they're against Christianity. It doesn't make any difference if we're talking about communism, it's against Christianity. Christianity and Christ is the one enemy of all of these different worldviews. Christ and him crucified, and Jesus Christ, God in the flesh. And that is the enemy of Islam, that is the enemy of communism, that is the enemy of humanism, that is the enemy of evolutionism. It is the enemy of all of these and more also, because that's where the battle is always. And it has always been right there.
Amazing. So there are other religions like Judaism, Mormonism, Abbaism. There are so many other different religions. What made Christianity special?
Because of deity in the flesh, Jesus Christ, Son of God, and he himself fulfilled the Old Testament, and now he is the one to be worshiped and honored. Judaism is opposing Christ itself. Judaism itself says some exceedingly ugly things about Jesus Christ in the Talmud. Judaism today is Talmudism, and Talmudism is against Jesus Christ in a very blasphemous manner. So whether it be Judaism, whether it be Islam, all the same, against Christ, and that's where we are in this country. As a matter of fact, you might notice that a lot of the leading politicians on the left are Jewish individuals, but they are absolutely blasphemous against Jesus Christ.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you hold Bill? Let me take a break.
Sure.
Okay.
Happy to.
Right. Bill, tell the folks how to get to your website and all the stuff you're doing before we get started here again.
Sure. Thank you for that, Jesse.
Okay.
Well, the website is still AmericanLibertyWithBillLockwood.com. And that website is there. I don't post articles on it right now, but it is there for people if they want to donate to the program. There's a donate button there. The program, however, is a podcast now, and I'm not on the radio, but and it's a podcast called Patriotic Pulpit, patrioticpulpit.com. And I'm on Amazon Music app. It's also on the Spotify app as well. So those are the two apps that I'm on. Plus, we have YouTube. I have a lot of shorts on YouTube from that podcast. But my sermons are on Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood, and I preach every Sunday and teach classes there. So I'm teaching on Revelation, the book of Revelation right now, and finishing that one up. But anyway, those are all on Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood.
Okay, well, we'll give it out again before you leave.
Sure.
I want to ask, which is greater, the threat from within the country or the threat from outside of the country?
Within. And
explain.
Well, you know what? If it's just like an individual. If an individual is equipped with the Word of God and has put on the full armor of God, as Ephesians chapter 6 teaches, then that person is invincible. Now, that person he or she may be killed for Christ, but that person is invincible to apostasy and falling away and being driven away. But if on the inside we have accepted principles and ideas and concepts that are contrary to Jesus Christ, that begins to erode our faith, and we become very, very weak, and we become people that we don't mirror Jesus Christ at all. And that's what's happening to the churches. So you take a cross section of the churches now, you don't see anything such as what was going on in the New Testament. So the same thing, in my view, regarding an individual is the same thing regarding the country as a whole. As long as we were faithful and if we can remain faithful and become faithful again to the principles of Christ and morality and a moral compass in our nation, then we are invincible as a people. But once that corrosion begins and we allow it to go on steroids as it has, then we are going to crumble within, and we are just an empty shell of what we were. And that will not be very difficult for anything to take down.
Amazing.
Besides that, God will bring about punishment for us if we're going to be so unfaithful as we have become.
Amazing. I know we got started late here. We were supposed to start at the top of the hour, but there was some problem with
that was my fault. You know what? I was trying to figure out some technological difficulties, but your staff is great. They helped me through it. Said, here's what you need to do. So anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I want to get to this Burning Man Music Festival in Nevada, and can you tell the folks, and then I want to play a soundbite from it so that people can see it that might not be aware of it. But tell the people, what is the Burning Man Music Festival?
Well, the Burning Man Music Festival is it's a hedonistic, no holds barred debauch. It is where people are ugly and anti-Christian and pro-Satan, and it's a drug, as one news article put it, a drug-addled festival. It's like Woodstock on steroids itself. It's Woodstock that is blown wide open. And it was started by Larry Harvey. He actually started it. He's an artist, but he himself was a humanist, did not believe in God. He himself was a leftist, and so he started in San Francisco on the beach, burning an effigy of a man, a little wooden statue, burning it. And they had a number of people in 1986 that gathered around and they celebrated it. But he himself came out of what was called the Cacophony Society, which is really a discordant type of society where they're trying to break up society, and there's everything against the man, everything against society, everything against what's going on in our country, and they hate kind of a hate America type thing. And so the Cacophony Society kind of blossomed into this, and he came from that background. So he started the Burning Man in 1986 on the beaches of San Francisco, and soon enough, there's so many people that were there. The idea of being a free spirit and a radical self-expression is one of his principles. That, of course, simply means there's no holds barred, there's nothing right, nothing wrong. So, for example, they've had this, and they have like 60 to 80,000 people now going to Burning Man, and have for the last number of years in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada. And they have celebrated Satan, they've celebrated sex, they've celebrated homosexuality. They've had incidences where they had in 2001, for example, what was called the Jiffy Lube incident. They have a whole camp that was dedicated to homosexuals, or homosexuals set it up. And they have a Jiffy Lube incident where they had and I'm trying to tiptoe through how to word it without being so offensive but they had two men performing homosexual acts in a model that was put up somewhere. And so evidently someone complained about it. And so the law enforcement got involved in it. But Larry Harvey came on and he said, in a blog site, he said, it doesn't violate the principles of Burning Man because this is radical self-expression. But I can see how some people might, but he kind of tried to pour oil on the waters. But basically, it doesn't violate the principles of Burning Man. one individual had been there from a Christian society, said, you know, it was a horrific, hellish display where they celebrated Satan, they mocked Christianity, they mocked Jesus Christ, they had effigies of an Elvis that had been crucified supposedly for your sins and that kind of thing, and they prayed to Satan, and it was just a hellish event. And that's what Burning Man is. It's just completely off the charts wickedness.
You said that he was is he still living?
Larry Harvey died, I think, in 2018. He died in 2000, but it is carried on by other individuals. But he had a LLC corporation that he established. And here's something else frightening, Jesse. The National Endowment for the Arts, which is funded by tax monies from you and me, actually granted Burning Man LLC, they granted them money. So in other words, our tax money funneled through the National Endowment for the Arts gave money to Burning Man. So you are helping sponsor, I'm helping sponsor through this wicked system of taxation we have in our country, the Burning Man event, even though it is celebrating Satan and denigrating Jesus Christ and celebrating homosexuality. And that's what's happening in our country. So that shows us a little bit where we are.
And you say that this guy was a humanist?
Right. He was a human. His followers
What's
said
a humanist?
A humanist, the humanism, the Humanist Manifesto, #1, was signed in 1933. It came out of the progressive era, which was basically communistic era, and it relied upon Darwinism as the explanation for the origin of life. So humanists are those who say there is no God. If you're going to be saved, you have to save yourself. And ethics are autonomous and situational. So your ethics and your ethical standard arises from within you. What you think is right is right. What I think is right is right. If I think something's wrong, it doesn't have anything to do with you. And so ethics are situational, depending upon the situation, and autonomous, arising from myself alone. Me, myself, and I determine what are morals. So that is humanism. So the first Humanist Manifesto, signed in 1933 by such people as John Dewey, who was the father of American education. John Dewey signed the Humanist Manifesto. The second one was put out in 1973, and then there was a third one in 2000. So there's a magazine called The Humanist. It was edited by Paul Kurtz, and he was a humanist himself. So humanism is there's no God. We decide ourselves what is right and what is wrong.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to play for the folks. We have a clip showing what Burning Man is. Watch this compilation, folks.
Okay.
You won't be able to see it, but it's pictures from the festival itself.
Maybe it's a good thing I'm not seeing it.
You know, I remember. So, Bill, I remember when I was younger, they used to have the hippie thing like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing.
Right. Basically the same thing, except much worse at this point.
So the Burning Man Festival, music festival. For those who were not watching, they were showing this festival thing. They had this piece of wood burning and a whole bunch of stuff. So the Burning Man Festival is the same thing as Woodstock. when the white people were doing all the hippie stuff?
Yeah, basically that's correct. Yeah.
I thought when I was young and I saw the white people doing the hippie stuff out in the desert, I just thought they was out there having fun. I mean, think, wow, white people kind of weird out there.
Oh yeah, you know what? But you know, it was all about throwing off the moral restraints of society. And so in the 1960s, Woodstock was not simply about just enjoying music. It was about resisting society's moral standards. That's what it was about.
Oh.
And the people there, such as the Abbie Hoffmans of the world, who were in the hippie movement, they absolutely were opposed to the police, just like Black Lives Matter. They hated the cops. They were anti-cop. But when Abbie Hoffman got his apartment robbed, he himself called who? He called the police. It's just this same hypocrisy that goes on now.
Yeah.
But the same thing is going on here today. It's the same thing.
I thought that they were against the war. That's why they were doing it.
Well, I think that was part of it, but that was not the only thing it was about.
Oh, okay.
Not simply about the war.
Right.
But it's interesting that communism infiltrated that movement because the communists were those who were against the war because we were opposing communism in Vietnam. Even though people had a hard time understanding what it was all about, we were opposing communism in Vietnam. So our soldiers, of course, they did oppose that. But nevertheless, it was also about throwing off any kind of moral restraints. As a matter of fact, they had a Port Huron statement in 1962, which started off this hippie movement in which they basically stated in a formal document that here's what we're against. And that was about the morals of America and Christian morality. They hated them. They were opposing them. And that's what got this thing all started. So that was the hippie movement. Yeah, it was not simply, okay, hey, so all of our young people, they were simply ignorant and their parents were ignorant about what they were getting involved in. So they let their hair grow long and they wore bell bottoms. They wanted to hear music. But it was really about throwing off the yoke of Christianity and the moral standards that we knew.
The Salon.com is reporting that every summer at the end of August, thousands of people from around the world make their pilgrimage to the countercultural festival called Burning Man. Some come for a spiritual awakening, some merely to party and indulge. What started as a small gathering in 1986 has been refashioned as a major event drawing more than 75,000 festival goers to the Black Rock Desert 2 hours north of Reno, Nevada. But recently, Bill, at this particular one, it rained heavily. So it kind of messed up their party. This is from Breitbart. The Burning Man Festival took a turn for the worse on Saturday when heavy rainfall caused unprecedented flooding, closing roads and leaving attendees stranded in the muddy desert. Watch this from NBC, folks.
The entire place is absolutely just soaked.
After 2 days of heavy rainfall left more than 70,000 trapped in thick mud in the middle of the remote Nevada desert.
Driving a vehicle right now is impossible. There is absolutely no way you can move a vehicle through this right now.
The local sheriff's office now probing the death of one person during the rain event. The cause still under investigation. But the festival says the death was not storm-related. The unprecedented downpour started Friday. Festival organizers telling burners to shelter in place and to conserve food, water, and fuel while closing roads both in and out of the playa.
And then the rain came, Bill, to wipe away that mess.
You know, one report I read said that it was only a half inch of rain. But, you know, if you live in the desert, like I'm from Phoenix, and if you got a half inch of rain, it floods. Or if you get an inch of rain, it floods. People don't understand that in the South because, you know, I moved to Montgomery and you're from that area. So, you know, you can get a 6-inch drop in one weekend and, you know, okay, you're going to get about your business. But you get that kind of rain in the desert, you're in serious trouble. And that's what happened out there in the playa.
That's amazing. So, Bill, and it's amazing how this time gone by. What causes things to repeat itself? Because during the hippie movement, when they were doing all that stuff, At that time, they had the Black Star Ranger and those black radical groups happening then as well, while the white people were doing their little thing at the festival and whatever else, right?
Yeah, except for Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What causes history to repeat itself over and over and over again?
Well, I suppose, Jesse, that's the nature of man, to minds like water seek the lowest level. Unless we become godly, unless we turn to Christ and seek higher ground, then we just devolve. And so as we see one generation from another generation in the book of Judges, they just went downward, downward, downward until they were worshiping idols. And that's exactly what they're doing at Burning Man, incidentally. Yeah. They worship idols. And so the same thing happened in the book of Judges. So then they had punishment from other nations that God sent in. They reformed, they repented, and they came back to God. And then they started going downhill again. But this is the very reason the founding fathers put into place the limited government that we have, because they didn't want the government run by men to go so degraded that it would now crush men in the rights and liberties. But that's exactly what's happened. But that's another story, I know, for another day. But that's simply the nature of men, that they were going to seek out the lowest level unless we actually become righteous and turn to Christ and go and seek a higher ground.
And that is a big way that is happening. We showed these different festivals way back then, and it's happening now. But I noticed that someone can commit a murder, right?
Right.
And they go to prison, and they're punished, and they say they would never do it again. But record shows that as soon as they get out, most of the time repeat offenders repeat the same thing, and they are back in prison again. Is that the same as these festivals and what's happening? Is that the same kind of thing?
I think so. I think that's a good illustration, really, because there's only one thing that changes a person, and that is his heart has to change.
Yes.
And that is done by Jesus Christ. And if a person's heart is not changed, then there's no change on the outward. So
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. You're right.
The heart has to change. Ain't
That's
nothing
correct.
else going to change. You could say until the cows come home, I would never do that again. I would never, never, ever do it. But if the heart doesn't change, you're going to do it again.
Right.
Amazing.
You have to repent. Yeah, you have to repent.
Yeah.
Before you come to Christ.
We're out of time. Tell the folks how to get to you again, and your websites and whatever you want to put out there.
Hey, thank you so much, Jesse. Enjoy being with you today. So the radio show, actually a podcast, is Patriotic Pulpit, and that is on Amazon Music app as well as the Spotify app as well. So those are the two apps. Patriotic Pulpit is the podcast, and then my sermons are on Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood, and you can find that. I'm at the Iowa Park Church of Christ. Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood. You can have my sermons, Bible classes, all that kind of material. And then, of course, the website to support what I do is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. And then there's a button there that you can use that to donate.
Nice. Bill, thank you. I'm glad we was able to get you today on here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Worked out. And we'll see you soon, man.
Looking forward to it, Jesse. Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate it. Love you.
Love you too, and I'm glad you're getting back on track again.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Looking forward to next month.
All right.
You bet.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Amazing. Bill Lockwood, folks, so check it out. Patriot Pulpit on YouTube and Bible Studies with Bill Lockwood, all right? Amazing.